All right, guys. So welcome back to ATS. Doing a little bit of hot shotting this time. Got us a load of concrete tubes out of where we were at before. Actually, just had to come back up here to Kiewit. We delivered. We delivered over the other side of that orange fencing over there past the guys' workers. So we got this load here going up to Modesta. No, we're not going to Modesta. That was when I was looking at. We're going to Oakland. Oh man. Concrete tubes, I think I mentioned that. And so, yeah, so we're going to be off to the races. So let's go ahead and get this parade going. And I know I kind of goofed for leaving here last time. I looked at the intersection a little bit, and yeah, I should have turned right and then kind of went to the light to make the left. But there's only really one way out of here, unless I do weird stuff.
Continue straight.
So this is going to be an interesting one to get out of. I'm just going to pull out here and just kind of watch this light about here, I guess. Oh, that didn't take long. Wouldn't get moving. So, yeah, so I wanted to talk a little bit about hotshot trucking. Now that we're kind of doing a little hotshot series here. It's not a numbered series, but so I got into hotshot in 2010. Back then I had a real nice dark blue Dodge Ram. Had the 5.9 liter Cummins in it, 6-speed manual, which was the good transmission. Well, no, I wasn't the best of the transmission. I had the G56, but it was decent.
Keep right.
So Chrysler transmissions are not known for being good when it comes to automatics, so having a manual was the best. The truck was 4-wheel drive, and I took a job. I'm not going to say the names of the company, so I took a job with a company hauling RVs. And let's see, there you are. Are you turning? You're turning, right? Yeah, you're turning. So I got a job hauling campers, recreational vehicles, however you like to call them. And I was pulling bumper pulls and fifth wheel trailers.
And then turn left.
Just kind of, whatever needed to go where. When I first started with the company,
Turn left.
I did a lot of West Coast running. It was actually how I got my feet wet in the whole West Coast area for the most part. Up until then, I'd been to, I think maybe I'd been to Wyoming and maybe Colorado, and I know I'd been to California a couple of times, but I had never been to Washington and Oregon and Idaho, Montana, a lot of those northern states until I got into doing RV stuff. So that's where I had a lot of fun with it. So the way that that industry works compared to this here is all the campers are mostly built out in Elkhart, Indiana. And I'm hoping that when they do this new Indiana DLC that they include all that. But so they're built out there. And that's where I think it's like 75 or 80%, 5% are built. The rest are built, some over in Oregon and a couple other states. We'll get into that later. So I got in with them doing that, and it was a little rough at first because not having a truck that I could sleep in. Are we going to shift or what's going on there? Having a truck that can do what it can do was a key thing, especially with all the winter stuff. So the primary routes I did a lot of was basically I would start out by taking usually closer to the weekend. So usually like on a Tuesday or Wednesday, maybe Thursday, I would get a load to out to New York. Is usually upstate. I think the one town I went to, Fairmount, was called Bath, New York. But there was a couple other places, and I would do that, and I would get delivered, Thursday or Friday, and then they would book me on a load going out west, and it would give me the weekend to make that drive. So most of the time I went as close as I could to Pendleton, Oregon. We had a yard out there, and there was manufacturers out there, and I would go out there as close as I could get and deliver, and then I would go over to Pendleton, and I would see if they had any That's a train over. I thought that was a truck going slow over there just for a second. But I would see about helping them out a little bit, and they would give me stuff going up to Seattle and over to Montana and just stuff like that. And then if I was lucky, they would give me a load going back east part way. Usually it would bring me in like Wyoming or Colorado or maybe Utah. They weren't real far. Other than that, when I did RV stuff, the way that RV stuff worked was you went out with a load and then you came back without a load. So you just drove a pickup truck back. And the money was good if you did it right. A lot of people struggled in that industry because they thought they had to go buy a brand new dually like this here and have a $1,400 truck payment and almost $1,000 insurance, you know, and then wonder why they're starving to death, you know. And they also would stay in hotels a lot. And I did at first. I stayed in hotels a lot. And that got expensive. I mean, $50 a night gets expensive quick. And that was cheap hotels. That wasn't the Ritz, you know, it was I wouldn't exactly say the Roach Motel, but you know, it was Motel 6 or Red Roof Inn or something like that, the cheaper ones. So eventually I started sleeping in the truck, started out using air mattresses, and I'd go through about an air mattress a week, which at $10 a pop, that was still a lot cheaper than a hotel room. But eventually I built an actual bed in there. But that's pretty much how I got started in the hot shot business. I was running over the road for about a year. Every once in a while I would come in and they needed help shuttling trailers. So they have, every company has their own dedicated crew that goes and shuttles these trailers from the factory that they're built at to the staging yard where I would pick up. And there's a lot of factories, and these factories don't want a lot of road drivers in there trying to pick up loads because they get lost, they go the wrong way, and then they complain about getting flats because there's screws and nails everywhere. And so there's dedicated shuttle drivers, and the shuttle drivers pretty much know where to go and where not to go, you know, as far as avoiding you know, tractors, traffic, you know, where all the screws are. Like this one area I used to see people cut through all the time, and they always had screws in their tires. You never cut through that area. It was shorter, but not really worth it if you gotta get your tires fixed tomorrow. So I got into doing a little bit of that, but unfortunately my money started getting tight. I started having problems with that truck. It needed a clutch. I didn't have that kind of money at the time, so I quit doing that. I went back to driving 18-wheeler, and I did that for about a year, and I was just miserable in the 18-wheeler. I really loved the hot shot thing, so I got back into hot shot. I in the meantime, during that year off of the hot shot, I bought a different truck, traded that blue one in for a red one, and I got back into doing it again. And I pretty much stayed in it up until around 2016, I think. And a friend of mine told me I could make all this money if I bought a semi truck. And I'm thinking, well, you know, yeah, bigger truck, bigger money, you know, but keep in mind, bigger cost. I mean, fuel economy in a semi truck is 4 to 9 miles to the gallon, where my truck loaded was, you know, 14, 15 miles to the gallon. Empty was even better. And so I went and did that, and I just didn't see the money, and I was miserable again. I just didn't like it. And I held on to doing the trucking thing for, you know, with the big truck for a couple of years, and I finally had enough of it, and I said, the truck's for sale, I'm done. And I went back into doing RVs. And the RV industry was just something I enjoyed, and I really enjoyed doing the local work. You know, we usually started our day, well, when I worked for the first company, I was actually a shuttle bus at one point over there. There was times I didn't start my day till 10, 11 o'clock, but I worked until midnight, 1 o'clock in the mornings usually. They usually didn't start shipping stuff out until after, you know, around 9, 10, or 11. So I just really enjoyed it. Now, when I got on with the other, with a couple of companies later, they got stuff a lot earlier, and we usually knew the day before what we had. So we all came in early and got started. And the last company I was really shuttling for, as far as RVs, we started at about 7 in the morning, and sometimes worked till 11, 12 o'clock at night, and back at it again the next morning. We usually had the weekends off. Every once in a while we'd have to work a Saturday. And on Saturdays we only worked till 12, so we'd come in at 7 again, and we'd work till about noon. So I really enjoyed it. And while I was working for that company, I started having truck woes again. The newer truck, the diesel exhaust fluid system, well, it didn't have DEF on it. The regen system was all screwed up, and it was costing me a lot of money in fuel, and I had to park the truck. I started driving my other truck, my dually, and it was doing fine. That the fuel pump goes out in it. So my friend that I knew that I ended up roommating with last got me in working for the guy he was working for, driving dump truck. So I was doing that, and you know, the money was decent. The hours were okay. Usually had the weekends off, you know, that kind of thing. But the trucks weren't really in the greatest condition. Most of the trucks, the AC didn't work, or at least when I was in them, they wouldn't work. It was just little weird stuff like that. So finally got the trucks back up and going, and landed the last job that I had, and I loved it. I'll be honest with you guys, to this day, and it's been 2.5 years now since I quit, and I wish I wouldn't have quit that job. I loved that job. I know they say money isn't everything, but that was the most money I'd ever made. I was treated like family because it was a small family operated company. When I was there, there was about 10 of us total, and that included the boss and his wife, and she didn't even drive as far as I knew, but she did all of our book work. She, you know, so he was the one that I was in contact with when it came to the loads, and he'd call me up and say, hey, I got this load, do you want to run it? Yeah, sure. So he would text me all the information, and we would keep in touch during that load, and I would let him know when I delivered. His wife, on the other hand, I text her all the time because I was sending her, you know, text saying, hey, this load's delivered. I would send texts with pictures of the toll receipts and all kind of stuff like that. So I just loved the company overall. You know, and we were very well taken care of. This guy that I was working for, he would go out of his way if you were in trouble. When I first started working for him, the water pump in my truck went out, and so I called him up and said, hey man, I'm not even sure I'm going to make it today to deliver in Wisconsin, but I'm going to do what I can. He's like, well, what's going on, bud? And I said, well, my water pump. I said, I think the water pump went out. It slung the belt. And he goes, oh man. He goes, you got a way to get over to the parts store. So I'm gonna have to walk over there. And he goes, you can't carry 5 jugs of coolant back. He goes, give me an hour, I'll be out there. So he drives, I think it was more like an hour and a half, but with the way he drives, it was more an hour. He drove out there and picked me up, and we went to the parts store, and I picked up all the parts and came back, and then he even helped me. Well, he tried to help me do this water pump, and he waited until I was up and running, and I gave him $100 for his troubles, you know, wasting his time coming out and helping me. And he wouldn't take the money at first. I said, you're gonna take the money one way or another. So he finally took the money, and I told him I really appreciate him come getting me and helping me out. And then while I was working for him, another guy, he had issues with his Chevrolet for some reason. I'm not sure what was wrong with that truck, but he ended up, I think he was all the way out in Iowa, and he stopped somewhere to get fuel, and the truck wouldn't start. That was it. It just wouldn't start, and couldn't figure it out. And our boss worked all day. He hauled frames for the RVs, which I was wanting to get into, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But I was really wanting to get into doing that too. But he hauled frames. So my boss usually was up at 4 in the morning, was at work around 5 or 6. And then they were done around 2 or 3. So he was home to get the kids and stuff like that. His wife did work at another job at times. I think she was working kind of part-time, and then he was home. Well, instead of him going home and chilling and do what he normally does in the afternoon, he went home, grabbed a gooseneck like the one I'm pulling. We had probably 4 or 5 of them at the time, and he went all the way to Iowa on his dime and went and picked him up and brought him back. And of course they took turns driving back because, you know, sleep deprived and stuff. But I mean, and he didn't expect a penny out of you for it. He just did it out of the kindness of himself. He just believed that was how you treated your employees, and you helped them out the best you could. And he just took care of us. And, you know, when you work for a company like that, it really makes you hold on and stay with that company. You know, when you're treated good and you like the work and stuff like that. Getting back into those frames, this gooseneck I'm pulling, and I have some pictures somewhere. I might have to see if I can throw them in the video or in my Discord or something, but I hold frames on a gooseneck like this, and I hauled back and forth through town, and then I even got into doing runs out to Ohio from Indiana, and they were good paying runs, and I enjoyed them, had a lot of fun. Um, but you know, that part of that, you know, just kind of fizzled out. They changed the way they were doing stuff. They didn't need me no more, so I kind of got put to the wayside a little bit, and
Keep left.
I went back over the road hauling RVs and boat trailers and whatever else we had, and I was really enjoying that, but I just didn't like being over the road. And right before I quit, I was already thinking about coming back home to be around my mom more and things like that. He called me up and said, "Hey, bud," he goes, "I know you really want to be local." I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well," he said, "I will help you set your truck up for hauling frames if you want to haul frames full time." I'm like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." And we talked about the pay, and the pay was good and all that stuff. So let me get back on it, man. I said, because I said, I've got some things I'm thinking about. I said, I'll talk to you in a day. And I thought about it, and I talked to my mom about it, and I talked to some friends about it, and just really weighed the options. And I called him back up the next day, and I said, "Man," I said,
Right.
"I really hate to do this." I said, "I really want to do it. I don't get me wrong." I said, "I really do." I said,
Exit
"But
right.
I've been thinking about going back home to be around my mom more and help her out." And I said, "I think that's still my best plan of attack, is to go back home." And I could have continued working for him. In theory, I was living in Florida, but I was roommating up north too, because
Keep left.
we had a hard time
Turn left.
getting me home. So what lane do I need to be in here? Right, lane, right? So we just had a hard time getting me home, and I don't blame him. It's not his fault, because when we do the RVs and the boats and stuff like that, the companies, you can't just call up these factories and say, "Hey, we got like 10 drivers that want to go to Texas, and can you get Texas loads?" It don't work that way. Um, the these factories, they just basically take all the trailers that they need to ship out that day, and they start dividing them between companies, and the companies that like more, they give them a little more, you know, that kind of thing. And we were a small company, so they would give us a few, you know, because they knew we were small. And so you just got what they get dealt you, and that was it. You know, there was no other way to do anything. And the only time we could ever get me home to Florida was always down to either Central Florida or South Florida. And at the time, that wasn't horrible, because my sister lived down that way, so I would go and spend a night with her and hang out with her and her husband and the girls. So that was always nice, but it was still 8 hours from home, and I would only get home maybe a couple of times a year.
Continue straight.
You know, usually about 3, maybe 4 times a year. And me, you know, with over the road, most truck drivers over the road, they go out and they work for usually 2 to 4 weeks, and then they come home for like the weekend or a 4-day weekend somewhere in that ballpark. And when I would come home, I might spend a week, you know, because I was gone so long. But it still didn't really equate to the amount of time I was gone. I mean, I was getting time off because I had a place to stay, but it wasn't the same, if that really makes sense. And funny thing is, I talked to my old boss the other day, and um, we were chit chatting, and he goes, "Hey," he goes, "you know, how close are you to so and so city in Florida?" And I'm like, "I don't know." I said, let me pull it up on Google Maps." So I pulled it up on Google Maps and looked over there, and they it was, I don't know, I think it's like 3 or 4 hours from where I live, and he just kept talking about it.
Keep right.
He hated that I quit,
Pin. Turn.
and I get that he wanted me to stay. I really wanted to stay. um he made a comment that no matter where he put me, I always seem to make more money than the next guy, because of, you know, how I operate. So I know the guy wants me back, and when I quit, he told me I always had an open invitation to come back.
Turn left.
So, and in theory, I almost would like to go back, but with some of my health stuff going on, I just don't know if that's really that great of an idea. So I'm just kind of holding my cards until I can kind of get this medical stuff sorted out. But in the meantime, I have this. And if you go back and look at some of my older content, you'll notice that I did more farming simulator back in the day. And the reason for that was because when you're driving and doing what I'm doing right now for a living, this is the last thing you want to do. You know, you want to do something else, you know. So let's see. So in real life, you would normally stop at all these scales, and they got these talk boxes, and you would either talk to somebody or you'd punch information in and it would just get sent to where you got to go. But not this one. This place is a little bit different. So do I go in here? No, that's a parking lot. I guess I go down here. Where the guard shack is. I guess just wave at the guys you go by. So yeah, that's the majority of my hotshot career. Now there's stories that's all mixed into there of different runs and different places and breakdowns and the goods and the bads and everything that's happened. But that was my career in a nutshell. And like I said, I've done that since 2010. I quit 2 years ago, so 14 years, but then minus a couple on the big truck. So I've over 10 years in that business. Hold on a second, guys. I think we're on the wrong road. We need to go this lane. Who's this laggy here? So yeah, I really enjoyed it, and we're facing around. Let's go down here and turn around. Should have went further. So yeah, and hot shot is not for everybody. Whether it's the RV industry or pulling a gooseneck like this, it's not for everybody. In real life, you can have a truck built like this, but it costs a lot of money, to have that sleeper and stretch the frame and do all that stuff. But it's doable. And if you get into the right market, the right niche or company or whatever you want to call it, you could do very well. The truck's in reverse. So yeah, that's pretty much that. So let's get this thing parked here without tearing anything up. The trailer's in still a pretty nice condition. I don't really want to tear it all apart. Close to the left, aren't I? Trailer damage. Oh man, I did rub it. Yeah. All right, well, they're happy with that, so I'm gonna park it here, set the brakes. I'm not going to use that button. I should have turned my wheel. All right, so let's get this off our back here. See how we did. I didn't go over this on the last video, and I apologize for that. So we did about $12,424, 606 XP, like I really need it. We'll hit continue. I don't know if they've got any work here, so I'll show you what I'm having to do with these. The only loads I can get is in this cargo market. I cannot use external market. But I mean, we are at, I don't know where we're at. Hold on. That's what I have to do sometimes. We're at Mayors. All right. So if we're here, do they have any loads out of here? One here, Mexico, Arizona. Yeah, so they got loads. That's what I like about this trailer is that most of where you go, you can get loads. So, but we're not going to worry about that right now. That's the wrong one. We're going to go back into outside view here, and we can get a view of our ride. Oh, it don't look too crooked, but it is ugly in there. But all right, guys, so that's going to be it for this video. I'm gonna end this, and I think I'm gonna take a break. Headache going, so we got some off and on weather this whole week with rain and such. So, but anyways, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next one. Later.